Attack of the Clones is 20 years old today, so it's the perfect time to do another Everything I Love About Star Wars video. Here's everything I love about Episode 2. Shout out to Attack of the Clones for demanding to be unique and panning up after the crawl instead of down. The detail of seeing ship traffic entering and exiting Coruscant is such a small thing, but makes the planet feel alive. The prequel trilogy is a neat time capsule to see how technology continued to evolve between 1999 and 2005. The skyscrapers poking out of the clouds and upper atmosphere of the planet is such a cool image, or maybe it's just really foggy that day. Either way, it looks great. I always like watching the N1 starfighter get knocked off the platform when the bomb goes off. Again, it's just this little detail that didn't need to be animated, but they did it anyway. I hope it didn't fall on anyone on its way down. Bail Organa. I remember being so psyched to hear he would be in Attack of the Clones. I kind of remember Jimmy Smits back then from commercials for NYPD Blue. I wasn't allowed to watch that, but I always think of Bail Organa first when I see him pop up in anything else. I also remember getting so excited seeing Ewan McGregor with a beard in Episode 2. I probably first saw him in Star Wars Insider or something, but it got me so pumped. It was the start of Beard Watch for him, which to this day, anytime he ever starts growing even a hint of facial hair, the Star Wars fandom freaks out and thinks he must be playing Obi-Wan again. Coruscant looks absolutely sick. I love the bright holographic billboards of the underworld. The Cahoons are sufficiently gross and creepy. You've gotta love a man that'll dive out of a 1,000-story building hoping to catch a little droid. Obi-Wan is supposed to be the level-headed one. The implications of the Doug that curses out Obi-Wan are pretty great. He's basically shaking his head as if this is the third time this week he nearly hit a Jedi doing some crazy nonsense. I like both speeder designs, but I really like Zam's, something about those prongs on the front. I vividly remember the reveal that Zam is a changeling. I love how quick it is, kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment. I saw it and I was like, wait, what is she? Very cool. Are those droids playing football? Yes, mark that down as awesome. A+, no notes. I love the Elon Sleaze Begano joke, and I love that his name is Sleaze Begano, but seriously, the deadpan delivery of the mind trick is very fun, and it's another moment I remember from 20 years ago in the theater, getting a good laugh out of the audience. It's really nice seeing Ahmed Best and Anthony Daniels get some screen time outside of their suits. Ahmed Beck walked so Kelleran Beck could run. I like how many costume changes Padme has in this movie. In a universe that will sometimes stick a character in the exact same clothes for decades, it's nice to see some variety. Padme's got something like 10 outfits in this movie alone. That feels like it's more than Leia and Rey got in the original and sequel trilogies combined. Oh, Dexter Jetster. What an interesting relationship I have with this character. I didn't think twice about him when I was 15. Then growing up a little bit more, I thought the whole diner scene was out of place and Dex was just too goofy and I didn't like any of it. But growing up some more, I'm fully on Team Jetster. That's how it is with a lot of things in Star Wars. Everyone trashes the holiday special, but then Din Djarin starts to carry Boba Fett's rifle from the animated segment and fans lose their minds. Dexter Jetster is very much a part of Star Wars and I loved his recent appearance in the novel Brotherhood. Also, he's got a sick mustache, if only he were a pilot. The Temple Archives has such a cool design, but it wouldn't be complete without stuffy librarian Jedi Jocasta Nu, although I will admit I like her a lot more after the Darth Vader comics. This kid right here, I love him. I know they're training sabers, they're not deadly or anything like that, but I cannot believe nobody has taught this child not to point the business end of a lightsaber at his chest. All the technology in the galaxy and Anakin still has to carry luggage. That doesn't hover. And also, R2 in the background making his way up the stairs on his own. Does he not remember he can fly? I always laugh at both these things at this point in the movie. Again, another subtle detail in this film that is full of subtle details, but there are Gungans hanging out and chatting in Theed, showing that the peace all the people of Naboo found in The Phantom Menace is still holding strong a decade later. It's unthinkable. It's outrageous. Good old C.O. Bibble is back at it again. He gets only a little bit of screen time in the prequels, but he really does make an impact, even if it's a memeable one. I really like the idea of hyperspace rings for ships that don't carry hyperdrives themselves, and of course I love the Jedi Starfighter design, especially the fact that it clearly can't hold an entire astromech droid. George Lucas just didn't care about that stuff. Something similar happened in Episode 1. The N1 starfighters were too long for the hangar, and their tails were sticking into the walls, and George was like, so? It looks the way I want it to look, which is cool, and that's all that matters. I love Kamino's design. It feels so unique for Star Wars, which makes sense because the planet isn't part of the Republic. Obi-Wan feels out of place, and he should. It all helps to give the audience that feeling that something weird is going on. And I really enjoy Obi-Wan playing detective. I wish the movie had leaned into that just a little bit more, but his scene with the Kaminoans are fun as he tries to keep up. That's why I'm here. I mean, Ewan McGregor is one of the standouts of the prequel trilogy as a whole. I think even people who didn't love the prequels when they were released are still among the group of fans clamoring to see Ewan play Obi-Wan again, and it is so exciting to have that series premiere a matter of days away. I've had mixed feelings about Sifo Dyas over the years. On one hand, I think it's a little silly that a major plot point of the Star Wars universe happened because of a typo. It was originally going to be Sidious, or a fake Jedi Master named Sifo Dyas that ordered the clones, but an F slipped in there, and George decided he liked that more. But I've got to respect George's very fluid approach to filmmaking and storytelling. He always knew what he wanted to say with his films. That's what was important. The details and the lore and how he delivered his message came second and would shift to whatever he thought was coolest at the time. I love the choice to use the droid invasion music from Episode 1 for the introduction of the clone army. A nice, subtle hint that this might as well be the same army fighting for the same person, Palpatine. I'm glad that Awa finally got some screen time after being part of concept art as early as The Empire Strikes Back. Timur Morrison as Jango Fett is, of course, great. I've really enjoyed getting to know him more over the years thanks to his behind-the-scenes appearances for the making of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. He just seems like a delight, and I'm thrilled to see him more and more involved in Star Wars. I love that Obi-Wan calls the Jedi Temple the old folks' home. Kenobi is funny in this movie, and I wish we got to see him ribbing the Council even more. And I love the fight between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett. As a kid, I was always disappointed we didn't get to see Boba Fett use his jetpack more, but then Jango Fett shows up and he's flying all over the place and firing the rocket off the top and using all his Mandalorian gadgets. This was a dream come true for a 15-year-old fan. The little gag of Jango hitting his head on the Slave One as the door is closing is a great nod to the Stormtrooper hitting his head in A New Hope. Obviously, I love the Geonosian asteroid chase. Everyone loves the Geonosian asteroid chase, because the sound design is off the charts good. The seismic charge is one of the best sounds Star Wars has, but both ships' engines, the asteroids crashing into one another, and the Slave One's blasters, it all sounds so good. And I also can't help but yell, "Fire!" along with Boba every single time. I always laugh at the idea that Anakin and Padme let R2 roll halfway to the Lars homestead before telling him to stay with the ship. People probably would have wondered where the little droid was if he hadn't been included in this scene, but come on, it can't be easy to roll over all that sand. Or maybe George Lucas wanted to show off how well the R2 prop worked now, since they had so many problems with it during A New Hope. I remember being so psyched and confused about Owen being in this movie. Up until this point, I was under the impression Owen was Obi-Wan's brother because that's what a trading card had told me. Come to think of it, I had a totally different story for Boba Fett in my mind as well from the Tales of the Bounty Hunters anthology book. I should thank Attack of the Clones for preparing me to roll with the punches as a universe as big as Star Wars continues to grow and evolve, and yeah, occasionally things are going to change, and it can be a struggle sometimes, but it's all gonna be okay. I can't not put the Duel of the Fates reprise on this list, not just because it slaps, but because of what it represents in this movie. The first Duel of the Fates was a fight for Anakin's fate, as Dave Filoni so eloquently put it. Qui-Gon's death means a shift in Anakin's future. The fate of Shmi Skywalker is another turning point. Whether or not Anakin reaches her in time is a deciding factor for his future. And this shot of the Sandcrawlers is just plain cool. It's beautiful. The fact that Ben Burtt got to voice Wat Tambor is perfect to me, with his little auto-tuned voice box thingy. I remember a lot of people had so much to say about Hayden Christensen's acting for both Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but man, he crushes this scene. First of all, I'm always heartbroken when a dying character just can't get out those final words, no matter what those words are, and the fact that Shmi can't finish saying she loves her son is so rough. But then Hayden's face going from hope to utter despair to full-on rage, he is so much better than he got credit for back then, and I'm so glad he's getting the respect he deserves now, and I can't wait to see fans continuing to applaud his return to Star Wars and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka. It's cool seeing all of the Lars homestead set being rebuilt just as it was back in 1977, but there's something about seeing the garage specifically that really makes me smile. I've got a lot of music stuff on this list because, you know, John Williams, but hearing the Emperor's theme or the Dark Side theme, which then builds into the Imperial March as Anakin talks about slaughtering the Tusken Raiders, is a great touch. And shout out again to Hayden, who is expressing both anger at the Tuskens, but sadness and guilt about what he did to them at the same time. I love Christopher Lee as Count Dooku. It surprises me every time I watch Attack of the Clones how little he's actually in this movie. His presence is huge despite the limited screen time. I remember Episode 2 and the Lord of the Rings movies coming out at the same time and just having a blast seeing Saruman taking over the geek world. It is so cool that Palpatine getting emergency powers because of a crisis like the Clone Wars was in George Lucas's head way back in the 1970s. Over 20 years later, he got to realize that origin story on screen, and it was still politically relevant. It's fun seeing R2 and 3PO getting to know each other more. 3PO thinking R2 just accidentally bumped into him and wasn't trying to push him off the ledge gets a laugh from me every time. Obi-Wan's "good job" delivery is yet another good comedic moment for the character. All three of the Geonosian arena creatures are cool designs. This sequence is like the Rancor pit dialed up to 11. I like that Padme is the only one to have a plan of action to escape. And I have to point out that Obi-Wan's "she seems to be on top of things" line is the start of George Lucas Punathon 2002. This is another thing that I rolled my eyes at for years, but after watching the movie several times, I guess it wore me down and I've come to enjoy it. I just like imagining him writing 3PO's upcoming dialogue like, "What a drag," and "I'm quite beside myself," and he was probably just having a blast with that script. If you haven't seen Shaylo Rin's TikTok on the physics behind Padme's jump off that pillar onto the Reek, give it a watch. It's hilarious. I remember being so thrilled in the theater seeing all the Jedi igniting their lightsabers together, fighting as a big group. We had never seen anything like that as Star Wars fans on the big screen. And I love that Samuel L. Jackson had the pull to convince George Lucas to give him a purple lightsaber just so he could find himself in the battle. If it weren't for him, we might have never seen other canon lightsaber colors outside of blue, green, and red. Hooray for Kit Fisto! Gotta love that smile. I always really liked this overzealous super battle droid that punches one of the B-1s out of the way to get a better shot. The clone armor is sick, and I love how it's clearly inspired by stormtroopers and Mandalorians, but still it's distinct. You feel like you can cheer for them, even though you know where it's all headed. The Battle of Geonosis is all around awesome. I think it's the best really large-scale battle in Star Wars between two massive forces. And there are so many cool vehicles, the ATTE is great, and the Hailfire is so much overkill, launching a ton of rockets when one alone will take out a walker. So cool. Dooku's lightsaber is awesome. I'm glad they didn't try to one-up Maul's double blade, like they just gave him a really cool fancy hilt. And I love his gleeful, evil grin while he fights Kenobi. Dual-wielding lightsabers is super fun, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it happen more often. I just wish it lasted longer in the movie. I know a lot of people had problems with Yoda and his lightsaber when Episode 2 came out, but I was not one of them. 15-year-old me loved it, and 20 years later, I'm still on board. Okay, two more musical callouts. The Imperial March popping up again with the massive shot of the Clone Army was good back in 2002, but it's even better now, knowing that this was basically Palpatine victorious. By starting this war and involving the Jedi, his enemies were spiritually defeated. The Clone Wars series tells us more about what it meant for the Peacekeepers to join this war, but having the Imperial March here is like telling the audience that it's basically over. This is when the Emperor succeeded, even if he couldn't publicly become the Emperor for 3 more years. And finally, we have Across the Stars to close us out. I feel like that song doesn't get the attention it deserves. That's the problem with John Williams. He's got so many bangers that some of his bangers aren't talked about enough. But I find myself humming or whistling across the stars all the time, and the way it develops over the course of Attack of the Clones is beautiful, culminating in Anakin and Padme's wedding. And that's the end of my list. Everything I love about Attack of the Clones. Let me know your favorite moments in the comments, especially if you didn't see me mention it. Let's get a good celebration of Episode 2 going down there for its birthday. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.